On this week's show, I got to speak with Aoife Concannon of the Improvised music company in Dublin. Aoife works as creative producer at IMC, who are a not-for-profit development resource for Irish musicians and a major promoter of jazz and improvised music. Aoife has spent 15 years promoting and producing creative events in a range of different art forms, but specifically in jazz, experimental and world music. Aoife has gained experience in many different areas for a variety of theatre and film production companies, and in roles and experiences for festivals such as Edinburgh Fringe, Bram Stoker and the Zanzibar International Film Festival. Aoife's role involves developing ideas, programming festivals and marketing artist-focused projects which help to promote experimental musicians throughout Ireland. So let's see how we got on. Aoife,
Hi.
how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Aoife, let's have a chat about the recovery plan from the National Arts Council. I don't know if you know much about it yourself, but I've been looking into it. I don't really know how the arts, culture will survive without additional funding. Have you looked into it much yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. It's like seems to be changing every day or evolving as much as the whole COVID-19 situation was kind of constantly changing. Like you just release one plan and then it changes the next week. So obviously the Arts Council initial response to the whole crisis was not great. 1 million invested. Compared to other countries like that are the same size, like population-wise, like Finland or whatever, that were getting, 20 million or 50 million or that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I think it's maybe just there's a bit of ignorance probably about understanding of what the arts sector is beyond the artists. Obviously the artists are integral to it, but then there's a whole lot of other people like myself and yourself who are working in the arts but aren't getting grants or to create an artistic project, but it's like the structure that makes it all happen. And all the people working in venues as well as the people who work freelance, which is a lot of people work in the arts work freelance just on festivals and events, which is a thriving industry, but it's all just falling apart now. So the NCFA have been great, National Campaign for the Arts. They've done like really good work and really achieved good things actually, and we're very lucky to have them because it's easy in this sort of scenario, if you take your foot off the gas, that you'd be left behind because everybody is obviously panicking and clambering and worrying about, not just right now, whenever the pandemic and unemployment benefit is available, even though at first it wasn't available to all artists and that was an issue. But in 6 months' time, when we don't really know what's ahead of us, but it probably isn't going to be great for any sector. So particularly for the arts, which will be the one that will take the longest to recover, like the events industry will take the longest. Absolutely. Just the nature of it being for large groups of people and, quite intimate. So.
Yeah, I know there was a 13-point plan or something. I think it was released last week.
Yeah.
I had a brief read through it, but I don't know if you know if has anything been signed off just yet. I think over in the UK, they were given something like £2.5 million, and that ran out in 5 days. I just don't think the government really understood over there either,
No, I think that's the problem whenever you don't have a education minister for culture, like that understanding the impact of the economy, but also the social impact or the social benefits. And I felt like the Irish government have been starting to see the benefits of the arts and festivals and events for society, and that they've been funding a lot more participatory stuff, such as like the Dublin Culture Company, the DCCCC, which is very much about community engagement. There's a lot of projects at the moment, social inclusion, all these sort of things that they're now funding. They released a social inclusion and diversity policy last year, the Arts Council. So they're understanding that it's a really good way of connecting communities and keeping people feeling good and happy, and it's just good for society to have some sort of engagement like that. But at the same time, I think there's maybe a lack of appreciation of the living expenses or the costs, because there's a bit of a cliche of being the starving artist maybe, or because people are very creative and used to making do, or finding a way to make it happen, which is the nature of being in the creative industry.
Mm-hmm.
Then that can be exploited a little bit, that even though everyone's very good at coming up with ways to make it happen, like is borrow this or whatever, improvise on this thing, it's a bit disrespectful to not appreciate and kind of properly fund it,
Yeah.
Other industries just wouldn't happen. But I think because there's such a personal passion behind like arts and music, people are kind of willing to do the work even if they don't get paid, which is unfortunate then whenever that's exploited,
Yeah, which it really shouldn't be the case, if you're going out of your way to work for anything, whether it's to entertain people or
when you think
offer
about
services. Yeah, everybody's deserves to earn their own book,
Absolutely. And the benefit to, like, say, the tourism economy, which the huge part of the tourism economy is based on arts and culture. Like, people don't come to Ireland for the weather. Okay, they come for nature, but they come for, a lot of it is the culture and music and the festivals and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all that stuff takes like blood, sweat and tears to make. So, it might be great that you have a great weekend, experiencing this thing that you're getting for free or whatever, but like the people who are behind it put months or years of work into it.
Yeah.
Which has been the hard part for the last few months, because a lot of people have, they're about to go on tour, or they were like ready to go with their festival or their theatre project, and then it's all just stopped. And that could be like years of work. So it's been hard on everybody in that way. I mean, it's been hard on everybody, like the whole world.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We're not the only ones. But you said the IMC, the improvised music company that you work with, they're government supported. Is that right?
Yes, they get annual funding from the Arts Council.
Okay.
So it's annually funded promoter of jazz and improvised music and world music, and a resource for musicians. So it's kind of helping to develop the scene and develop the careers of musicians, and work kind of directly with people as well as putting on gigs and festivals and kind of representing the Irish jazz scene.
Okay, and like how long do you reckon they could last without a injection from the government?
Well, so IMC have been funded. So IMC started in 1991, was set up by a bunch of musicians, basically to have a bit of a structure of promoting gigs and kind of organising themselves. And I think in the late 90s, they first got funding. So it's been annually funded now for, I'm not sure exactly, but at least 15 years. So it's pretty well established as in that way. So in that way, it feels secure. It survived the recession. Obviously funding was massively cut. Like it had been, I think 5 people went down to 3 people, one of them part-time working on it. Loads of things just had to fall by the wayside, but it did survive. So because it's annually funded, the annual funding for 2020 is still there, but all the plans have had to change. And now we're looking at essentially not having any income. So normally, even though we're not for profit, we're not for loss either. So we're supposed to kind of break even. That even, we obviously spend a lot of money on artist fees and, booking venues and wages and all that sort of stuff. But we also make box office income, which we haven't done now since the beginning of March. And we probably won't.
Probably for the rest of the year, really.
Yeah,
well,
really.
Unless there was in a profitable way, you probably, like, I can't see it happening, because the way it works is by numbers. You sell tickets, and the more numbers you have, the more income you're going to make. So it's just not going to.
Like, we haven't tried, and nobody in Ireland really that I know of has tried monetizing gigs, as in charging to join an online gig.
Okay.
And so we finished a series already of online gigs called Piece by Piece, which was over 8 weeks, which was actually fantastic, and really, really enjoyable and really good quality as well.
Okay.
But that was free.
Where did you publish that?
So that was basically what it was is it's like kind of a musical chain letter of improvising musicians. So every week the artist would be essentially inspired by the previous week's musician.
Okay.
So they take the inspiration of that piece of music to make their own piece of music. So they were all composing new pieces of music that were basically between 20 and 30 minutes long, but it was like kind of dipping into each other's compositions.
Right.
And then they made little kind of videos to go along with it. Some of which was very simple, just them in their home. Some of which was quite artistic, or like them in their 2 kilometer radius or their 5 kilometer radius. But they're premiered every Friday night at 8:00.
Okay.
So we kind of had a live YouTube chat where people could tune in, like kind of like being at a gig, or as close as you could get to being at a gig, where you could interact a little bit about music. And on Facebook as well. So that was in association with Triskel Arts Centre in Cork. So they hosted it on Facebook and we hosted it on YouTube, and we also shared it on Instagram as well.
Okay. And was the feedback good, or what would you say?
Was great. I mean, the feedback was especially good by the musicians, because I think there was a lot of pressure on musicians to just do a gig at home, or, their whole income and everything, just sort of disappeared overnight.
I think as well, I was speaking to a fella, Rory Kelly is his name. He has a company up north, there's a promotional company up north.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me that, he's been doing some of these, like, say, acoustic sessions with some of the artists. But it's really difficult, I suppose, for them to actually perform to their max capacity because of the atmosphere, like a crowd would generate. And, so I'd be interested to hear how these artists felt during your piece by piece sessions.
Well, this is why we kind of did it differently, because I felt like it's, and it's great that people were getting online and doing little gigs from their bedrooms or whatever. But it's like, I don't want to diminish how good it is in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because also, not everybody's going to be set up with, not AV equipment or studio quality acoustics or anything like this. So
it's a whole other stress as well.
Yeah, you don't want the wrong picture being portrayed either.
Yeah. So I feel like there was a bit of a rush to do that, and then it kind of backed off. So with this, we said, okay, we won't live stream it. You record it, but we'll premiere it. So it's like a live event, but to take the pressure off that sort of live stream thing. So it also kind of allowed that they could, because we said we don't really want a video, even though if you want to just do a video of you to the camera playing your instrument, whatever, that's fine, but you kind of have free scope to get a bit more creative with it, whatever that might be. So everyone kind of did, and it ended up kind of being a little bit of a visual art project as well, which I think was a challenge for them that they all seemed to actually get into and enjoy. But because it was pre-recorded, they could do a few takes. And also because it was like a community thing, because it was like, all the artists were very supportive of each other and also kind of excited. If you were artist number 7 and you're kind of watching it coming towards you and you're seeing what everybody else is doing, it's kind of building as to the inspiration that you're getting for what your piece is going to be.
Okay, so this, when you say it was a music chain, so this all happened, this wasn't like a day by day thing, whereas you would do your piece, yesterday, and I take up the day later. It was done live
every week. But like, we basically probably give them about 10 days, a week or 10 days to get the recording of the previous artist. So that before it had been released, we would give it to them a few days earlier.
Okay.
And then they could start working on it. But they could also take inspiration from other people before that. So towards the end of it, some people were kind of dipping into like 3 or 4 of the previous artists' music and using little samples and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's like, it was a real like slow collaboration that they're still creating their own music, but it's like there's little hints and touches at the previous work. So it's like probably something that we never would have done. Well, we definitely would never have done it as a video in normal times, but it is even something that in a live way would be great,
Yeah, I think it would work. Sounds really good.
But yeah, and the audience seemed to like it as well because it was like that, a bit different, and also because it was a series, so that you kind of became curious as to, well, what's the next person going to do?
So with your other festivals, I know that as much as you promote jazz through the IMC, there's also 3 or 4 festivals that you host and promote every year, isn't that right? Spectrum, 12 Points, Hotter Than July. Is there anything I'm missing there?
Well, that's kind of it, mainly. Sometimes we had Down with Jazz Festival for years, but that hasn't run now for the last few years, and that was kind of pretty straight up Irish jazz festival.
Okay.
But currently we would have Hotter Than July, 12 Points, and Spectrum. But I mean, Hotter Than July is happening, but not in its normal thing. So that's in July. It's with Dublin City Council, and that's a World Music Festival. And then 12 Points is a jazz improvised creative music festival, but it's pan-European. So it's 12 emerging acts from 12 different European countries. And they're all kind of young artists. And it's basically picking the kind of next big thing from each country, and putting them all together. So for a lot of the bands, it's their first time playing outside their own country. And that's very much a European project that we kind of, every second year it's in Dublin, and every second year it's in another European city. And that, unfortunately, we're just announcing today, so by the time this goes out, that it's going to be cancelled. It was supposed to be at the end of September in the Sugar Club in Dublin, back home. And it's just not feasible. Like, it not only is it a festival,
travel, but obviously
4 nights, but all the travel. Like, we can't be responsibly bringing people from all over Europe into Ireland in September, plus quarantines and all this sort of stuff. It just couldn't happen.
Yeah. So how are you planning to, I suppose, how is Hotter Than July going to happen? Is it anything different, or is it just going to be online?
Yeah, I mean, so it has to be online. I'm working on that at the moment. We almost finished the program, and we'll be releasing it next week.
Oh, cool.
It has to. I mean, like, we had some ideas of some sort of like pop-up, like little experiences. It's based in usually Smithfield Square, so kind of Dublin 7, Dublin 1, the north inner city, and kind of being something to benefit the local community. It's a free festival. It's family friendly, all this sort of stuff. So we normally get great audiences locally, as well as people who are just into the music. So we were thinking of maybe doing a few pop-up things, like in some squares, or, normally the festival opens with a procession of some sort, like a samba procession, where the samba band will kind of walk through the streets, and then that's how we kick off the festival every year. So we're thinking, maybe we could do that, as in map out a little route around, Stony Batter or something. But unfortunately, it just can't happen because, well, Dublin City Council are our partners, and they're great, and they're really supportive of making something happen, but they have to be responsible, just in case a crowd congregated, or I don't know, and So they were like, look, we want to make it happen, but it has to just be online. So again, we've been trying to kind of do something a little bit creative with it, and we decided that we do want to have a music program, but it becomes a TV production, which is a whole other element and budgetary thing that we normally don't have to consider. Because normally we might get a videographer in just to get kind of the vibe of the day. But, we want, if we're going to be putting it out, our expectation of quality has changed since March. So now we want it to be really high production values. And if we're going to get the musicians together, so now, bands can meet, which is brilliant. So we're going to basically release, and also then we were wondering, should we like that live stream or record a whole session, or should we just record a few tunes and release them like music videos? But basically we are going to have 4 acts doing 2 tunes each in different spaces, but get a really good quality video and audio. And then we're also going to do a number of workshops and kind of participatory projects.
There's a lot of good studios and stuff appearing. Since this pandemic, there's the guy. I don't know if you know the guys in Event Field. They've currently rebranded their to Fuel. But it sounds like they'd have a perfect spot for you to try some of that if you haven't sorted already. But
well, actually, I've already booked it in, but we're going to go to Camden Recording Studio on Camden Street.
Okay.
Because I suppose we know them for a long time. They're jazz musicians as well, so we kind of have a long-standing relationship. Even though this is not jazz, but the music is often quite related. And also then we're going to a brand new place for us, which is called The Space Between, which is actually a yoga studio on Fenian Street near Pearse Street. But they also are kind of opening it up to kind of, I suppose, experimental, some kind of music things, as well as like kind of philosophical talks and discussions. So they kind of want to make use of the space. It's a really beautiful space. So we thought that for some parts of the program that would actually really suit this kind of spacious, chilled out thing. Also, we also have to consider space, because everybody, when we're recording, has to be 2 meters apart. So
how it's going to work, I don't know.
It just becomes like, okay, well, we can't obviously squeeze into a normal stage. So even in Camden, one of the acts will be a 10-piece band, a Cuban, Afro-Cuban band who are amazing, called Havana Che. But that is going to be a challenge. Like we're, even like things like the health and safety plans, like which we normally wouldn't do for a regular gig. It's not like a festival where you have to have your whatever EMP. But for this, we will actually have to even just like how people use the toilets, so you're not, too close together. It's like a one at a time system, or when people will arrive. We're probably going to have to mark on the floor where people will stand.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a bit strange, but it just requires like a whole other level of planning. And then, of course, the most important aspect being the videography, because without the videographer getting all the right shots, we don't have a gig.
Yeah.
So normally the videographer is like, okay, well, you just do your thing, whatever, the music is the main focus. But obviously the music is the main focus, but we have to make sure that she can get everything that we need, because that's our end result. That's how our audience are going to see this. So
yeah,
it's just a different way of thinking, which we're trying to get used to. But no, I'm excited. I mean, we'll be announcing it next week around the 18th of June, and it'll be happening basically, instead of happening on one day, we'll be spreading it over 2 weeks at the end of July, because I think audiences maybe, or like with a festival, you kind of happily be at the festival for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Never just kind of wandering around. But you're not going to sit in front of your laptop for 8 hours watching anything.
No, I don't think so.
Unless, it's some sort of series that you're addicted to. But like, it's just a different thing. So I think little snippets every day, if we have 20 or 30 minutes of something that's hotter than July related, going out over 10 days or 2 weeks.
I'm sure there's other festivals similar that have done, similar things, that have had to, change the way they usually operate over the past few weeks that you could look up on. There's one guy, we were talking to the guys in Grooveyard as well, and is Riverfest, I think, in Limerick, which is, a huge festival during the year, every single calendar year. And they streamed it online, a lot of the elements of that. So it'd be one to look at as well to get some inspiration.
Yeah, because there is, I think now people are maybe coming to accept. I think at first people were just cancelling and hoping that it will be over and done with. But now it's like, okay, well, let's try and do something. Like Fringe Festival just announced that they're going to have a different type of Fringe, but that will be happening in September.
The Dublin Fringe or Edinburgh?
Dublin Fringe, yeah.
Okay.
So
you had experience in Edinburgh Fringe yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, that was actually one of my first festival jobs.
Really?
I worked.
It's meant to be something else. I've never been over there. I've only read up on it.
It's the biggest arts festival in the world. I worked there just for I lived in Edinburgh for a year and a half after college, and I worked for 2 summers. Once in the admin, like in the office, and once as box office manager for the university venues. But it's incredible. Like, it's just huge, and like the program is like this thick of like so many things on. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire. But then everything else kind of seems manageable after that, I suppose. But it was a great one to get and also it's good because you know how it is in Ireland, if you go off and do something elsewhere and then come back, it's more impressive.
Yeah,
absolutely. Done something abroad.
You bring something from somewhere else back to the country, so it obviously helps. Just regards to the jazz scene, like I know it's over the past couple of years, it just seems to be getting more popular, and like you look at the Cork Jazz Festival, for instance, which now Guinness are spreading, everywhere. Does Dublin have the capacity to throw a festival like that? Or like I think JJ Smith's in town. That's like they do sessions, jazz sessions all the time, don't they?
Well, they used to, but they actually
shut closing?
Down. They shut down maybe, God, I don't know, a few years ago now. And then sadly, Brian Smith, who was running a place, passed away kind of suddenly, which is like a huge loss to the jazz community. But yeah, they were great because that was a family-run place, and Brian just absolutely loved jazz. So even if it wasn't financially the best investment for him to be having jazz gigs upstairs, he still just loved it so much, and created a nice atmosphere that kind of everybody would go and play their gigs there. So since then, Arthur's on, what's that street? Thomas Street. I haven't been out and around so long. Has been really good actually, as putting on like jazz and blues gigs. But
Like,
we don't have a proper venue, as you know. So
you
that
look at a place like Arthur's. Will they, do you think they'll survive? Because I know a lot of the hospitality industry are going to struggle to get back to the way it was.
Well, this is the problem. So we, like IMC, have a monthly session there called the Signal Series, which is like a double header of Irish jazz acts.
Okay.
And so that obviously was cancelled then for the last few months, and we were hoping then to go back in September to see if we could just even try put it on and reduce capacity. But I don't know if Arthur's will be opening. Like, Arthur's is very dependent on tourism. They have, the downstairs bar, and they serve food, and it's all about people who go to the Guinness storehouse basically come there afterwards.
Okay.
So that's how they make their money. And then the gigs upstairs, it's great to have, and I'm sure they make a bit of money from it, but it's not their bread and butter. So I think for them, they'll have to kind of wait till the tourism comes back before they open for gigs again.
Yeah.
And we don't really know when the tourism can come back. Not this year, I don't think. I think it'll be January really before we expect to see any tourism.
Yeah, I would worry for some of them, because a lot of them were literally just doing their thing to get by before this hit. So if they have any additional rates, and just even the staff like having to, maybe reevaluate their careers, or it'll be hard just to build back up a business from scratch when you're barely scraping through.
That's the thing, because there's some bars and restaurants that are very much local business, and hopefully once this settles by the end of the summer, they'll be able to, I don't know, at least have maybe 60% of their previous sort of income back by, they'll have to space things out, or they'll have to change the rules, but at least the local people will be dying to go out where possible. But if you're dependent on tourism, which, a lot of places are, that's going to be a big problem, particularly like little villages in the west of Ireland or whatever that just don't have a big population locally, but will be packed in summer. Dublin city centre is a different thing. There's a lot of people living here who normally have money to go out and eat and drink. But again, it all is interconnected and affects each other. So it's really hard to predict really how, people say we might just bounce back economically, but there's just, everything seems to be connected to another way, that if that doesn't work out, then this thing doesn't work out, then these people don't have jobs, and these more people need to be signed on, and then that takes more money away from the government to invest in something else,
Yeah, I'm thinking the same myself. There always just seems to be a knock-on effect there somewhere when I'm trying to figure things out for my own stuff. Have you changed the way you do things? I suppose, I know your job with the AMC is mainly marketing based. Would I be right in saying that?
Well, actually, with IMC, I suppose I'm kind of half and half. I started off as publicist, and now marketing director, and Katrina, my colleague, does a lot of the PR and social media, and I do now more creative producer work. So it's like producing and programming various projects and stuff with IMC. But I am also marketing director, so I kind of do a bit of both.
Yeah, I suppose you have to, I suppose. And have you had to change any? I know, like, obviously the majority of your marketing, let's say, your the ways you go about it, let's say, would be all online at the moment. Has that changed, or is that something you've had in place?
I mean, that's kind of the way I've gone the last few years anyway. But say something like Hotter Than July, we normally would have done a big marketing campaign, like we'd have 60 by 40 billboards and flyers and posters and all that sort of stuff. So we're not doing that this year because it just feels like there's no point. So everything for that is online. But like, say, for the last few years with a lot of our smaller gigs, we kind of found that online, investing online and doing some Facebook ads and just creating good content was just as, or if not more effective than flyers or posters.
Yeah. I always think,
you're not wasting paper and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, it nearly decorates the city's landscape, though, the different posters and gigs that coming up. But I've always wondered, are they actually that effective?
Few weeks walking around and seeing the billboards that had like stuff that was in March and April that obviously never happened, and they're just left languishing on the billboards. But they've taken them all down now, actually, and they're all just empty.
Really?
What's the name of that company again?
So they're just.
But yeah, it does. But it's very hard. Like they basically can tell you the footfall of the amount of people that pass that billboard, but it's very hard to know. I mean, you can do surveys and say, where did you find out about the festival? And they might say, oh, post. But usually there's like a person will hear about an event like 10 different times, maybe before they buy a ticket. And that could be that out of the corner of their eye, they see a poster, or it could be their friend saying something about it, or like while they're scrolling through Instagram, they see something. But like it gets harder and harder to get through to people now because there's so much stimulation.
Okay, so
if you think about 20 years ago, it was literally just posters or newspaper.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I doubt there was much like traffic calculation even being taken into account. As like what in regards to budget, what sort of numbers are you talking about for these for your marketing, like for Hotter Than July, let's say? Do you split it 50-50 online, offline, or is it? It's obviously more expensive to be marketing, in the pub, like external, like offline, let's say, than it would be to market online.
Yeah,
to get the same numbers.
It's way more expensive. Like a big kind of 60 by 40 is what we're calling them. Not a full billboard, but kind of those bigger ones. A campaign of that, you'd be probably spending 1,500 to 2,000 or something like that. Okay. Now, it kind of like it's not great, in my opinion, for information, but it's good for just a little bit of impact of brand awareness, exactly. Yeah. So remembering a name, but like I don't think there's any point in putting too much detail. But if you have like a good, say, Hotter Than July, so that's the only one at this stage that we would do big posters for. I also work with Bram Stoker Festival, and we, as a freelancer, and we do a lot of big outdoor campaigns for that. But again, that's just brand awareness. So then people are reminded, oh, it's almost that time of year again, because it's coming into that month. But you really focus online because that is where people are looking most these days. They're not looking in their daily newspaper of like, oh, what will I do this weekend? Yeah. They're just on social media, and that's where they absorb everything. So
heads down, yeah. If I was a promoter, if I was I wanted to throw an event and look at advertising, I suppose, on these billboard spaces, where do you go through yourself, and how does it work? Like, how do they, like, do they give you a week or a month, or it's obviously
you book it by week. I feel awful. IPA, yes. No, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain is just gone of who it is that I book it with. So yeah, I think it is IPA, Irish Poster.
And they look after everything. You just send them the designs and
so you'd obviously have the design done up, and you book it in, and it's basically how many sites you want. So you can have 20, 30, 40, 50 sites around the city, and a week or 4 weeks or whatever you can afford. But it goes by the number of sites and the number of weeks.
Okay, so you said like your 60 by 40 campaign, is that like one 60 by 40 would be between 1,500 and $2,000, or the 20 locations would come in under that?
Yeah, or the 20 locations. Yeah. I'm talking about like a small campaign for that.
Yeah. Okay.
So you don't have the option of just putting one.
Yeah.
I think the minimum amount that you can put up is 20 sites.
You would really want to be, focusing your budget online for selling tickets, and then just your brand awareness, I suppose, would be the best with city prints. Yeah. So yeah, just then with your marketing, what do you use? Is there any programs or like software or stuff you use, or what's your most, say for any event, what's your plan look like going into it? What do you hit Facebook? What sort of software are you using, like digital marketing software are you using to create your ads, or if you even do any of you, do you outsource all that?
I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't really say we use a lot of apps or different software. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd make a lot of stuff just in like Photoshop or Pixelmator, like graphics. What I normally would do is get a good designer to do, obviously, the main design, and then also ask for the assets, the basic assets. Okay. So that then you can, if needs be, create a version for whatever. So even if it's like a notice saying, an update basically about it, you can still kind of do it within the brand, or if you want to do a header for something that you haven't gotten in your package. Video content is also really important and something that we've been doing a lot more of. And yeah, my colleagues Katrina and Ken have been like brilliant at that. They've really upskilled hugely in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would hire, say, somebody to do a promo video, but often little videos we found make huge impact. Even just clipping 20 seconds worth of live performance, it's just a way to engage people these days. But also everyone's attention span is so short. So we do a lot of video content. We've also started in the last year or two doing making use of our website as for interviews. So we do Q&As with every artist that is playing, or often with different people in the jazz scene, just to get kind of their feed and thoughts. But now basically we don't do a gig without having a chat with the musician about who they are, where they come from, their inspirations, that sort of stuff. And that's normally written. We have done a few video ones as well. But that stuff gets good traction because it is good content. And it's kind of like, in the past, you'd be sending out press releases to the media, hoping to get interviews. But as there's less and less music media, now it's like, well, just become your own publication. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even in the Irish Times, it's like there's the chances of getting an interview, or even on radio, because I suppose there's less space as well for the more experimental art forms. So we kind of have to just find your own ways.
Yeah.
And also there's great support amongst the music community, particularly in the last few years, of giving each other plugs and support, which I think really helps. Like we've done a lot of collaborations over the last few years with different organizations like FMC or Music Network or Bray Jazz Festival, all these sort of things. So Kaleidoscope, we're happy to promote and plug them, and then vice versa, which I think is great for the audiences because you can find out about new things.
Yeah. I'm very passionate about that myself, to be honest. I think it's you're better to be working with people than trying to just prove to everyone you're the best and killing off others. So I do much prefer. I like the way you think.
It's like it's a collaborative world, and like the more the better. We really changed that a few years ago. So in the IMC newsletter and on the website, making a point of that basically half the content is other people's stuff, because we are a promoter and we want to sell tickets to our gigs and all that sort of stuff, but we also want the jazz scene and the improvised music scene to grow and get stronger. So if we are informing people about other jazz gigs and other festivals and that sort of stuff, it's only actually benefits us in the long term, because more people go to jazz and experience it, and then more people go to jazz.
Yeah.
It works out for everybody, really.
Yeah. Well, I do hope the scene gets back to where it should be, and I hope Hotter Than July goes well for you. Whatever way, what with the way you plan on promoting it this year, and hopefully I'll be able to cross your path again sometime soon when we're back to normal.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for coming out again today, Aoife. I really appreciate your time, and
thanks very much.
Must stay in touch.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, Owen.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.